Okay, thanks for the patience. We're back at it. I have Shelley Goldstein here, and listen to episode 506 for the first part of this, if you will. But if you have, then you know towards the end she kind of baited me with, "Hey, I've got an exercise I want to put you through," and we did the exercise, and it really kind of made the podcast a little longer, the episode a little longer than I wanted it. So I've extended it into, or I turned it into a second episode. So here's the second part of my conversation with Shelley Goldstein, and she's going to do a speaking exercise with me. So listen in and learn. If you want to hear the full interview with Shelley Goldstein, you need to go start with episode 506, which released on August 3rd. This particular episode, 507, released on August 4th, 2022. So here we go. Let's switch gears here. Let's talk about remarkable speaking. You've kind of talked about you have group settings. Is that primarily how you work, or I guess share a little bit about that business, that practice?
Well, this business model works where it is 6 individuals in a pod, and we do 6 one-hour sessions over 6 weeks. It's scalable for any organization and individual because time is our money. It also is enough to give us an audience, so we're not speaking by ourselves or just to one person, and yet you have 2 coaches for 6 individuals. There aren't programs that I know of that do that. So you get 2 perspectives with 6 people. So it's real intense, or it's an intensive, I should say, where you get a lot of instruction and a lot of experiential learning. From that process, we run teams. Say, an accounting firm has their accountants going through it, or a auto dealer is having their sales team go through it, or doctors. We've run every industry you can imagine.
Sure.
We can run the teams through in small segments, not interfere with the workday, and at the same time advance people and mix it up. We also offer larger workshops that are more free-flowing. So sometimes we get 20, 50 people. Not everybody could participate in that 90 minutes, but it's an opportunity to be in front of even a bigger audience, ask more general questions, and experience different types of different things that other people face, or challenges they have with speaking, and how we can overcome that. Or we do, like, for example, with you here today, we can jump into a little trial and practice some games and experiment and see how it goes. And your listeners will learn just from this experience alone, just from listening to you.
Are you baiting me into doing something here? Is that what?
I am.
Okay, I'm game. I'm game.
I love it.
It's a podcast. If it goes horribly wrong, it just won't make the light of day. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on a 1-minute timer.
Okay.
And let's see if I could do this with my, I don't think I can do it with my dashboard. Oh, it's going to make me sign in. But anyway, we'll just close that up. Let's put on a 1-minute timer. And what I'm going to do is I will give you 10-second notice when we're getting close to wrapping up. And in 1 minute, or actually, let's do 2 minutes.
Okay.
I want to hear your introduction that you just did when you introduced me, introducing your podcast. I'd like you to do it in 2 minutes without looking at your notes.
Oh boy. Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I am your host, Frank Agin, founder and president of Spirit Business Connections. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for referring other people. As my ongoing listeners know, often on this podcast, I will be sharing ideas and insights, best practices for becoming better with respect to professional relationships and business networking. But occasionally, I will bring on subject matter experts. These are authors, these are speakers, these are podcast hosts, these are social scientists, these are people with an expertise that can help us learn better how to develop better professional relationships, as well as build those business networking skills. Today on the program, I've got Shelley Goldstein. She has a business called Remarkable Speaking, and her partner work with executives all the way down to entrepreneurs, C-level, down to the smallest companies in America, and help them gain confidence, clarity, and courage to speak to their audience. They've worked with companies all across the globe, 35 countries. And welcome to the program, Shelley. How did I do?
Good. Very good. Very good. You did well, and I'm going to take it a step further. So
Okay.
what I want to ask you this time is, I want you to take a few seconds and think about why this podcast? What does this do for you? Why are you so engaged? It's a lot of work. Every day you're interviewing people, recording. Why is this important to you? And before you speak, I'm going to put you on a 1-minute timer, and I'm going to ask you to sit for another 5 seconds, and then I'm going to have you speak. Now, the audience can't see this, but at some point I'm going to hold up my hand with a 5 seconds, and when you see my hand, you're going to stop and take a deep breath. And then you'll continue to speak. So same introduction, but you're going to tell me why. Not anything about what. Why this is important to you. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Starting the timer, and I've got my 5-second hand up.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I am your host, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. My name's Frank Agin. The Networking RX podcast came about because relationships, business networking, professional relationships is the difference between thriving and failing in today's business world. Nobody does anything alone, and understanding that you need to have people in your corner, you need to have people out there that you can work with and rely upon. So the purpose of this is to give you ideas, give you insights, best practices for becoming that great networker, the person with wonderful skills in developing professional relationships.
Very good. We're going to do it again one more time.
Okay.
And I want you to think of one example of the failures, of the successful networking practice, whatever comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
An improvement. Can you think of something?
Yeah, do you want me to start right from the beginning again?
No, I want you to jump right into the story.
Okay.
1 minute. Here we go. Right into the story. Lead in with that.
For example, there is an individual I know who was part of our organization for years, and they went into every business relationship, every one of their professional relationships, selling and selling hard.
Mm.
They wanted to close the deal on the first contact. It was akin to getting married after meeting somebody at the bar, and they were failing miserably. So through our organization, through understanding these principles of developing relationships, they became more astute at just getting to know people, getting to understand people, and realizing that not everybody was a client for them or a prospect for them, but everybody was more of a segue or a connection to what would be a great client.
And close with, I'm telling you this because.
I'm telling you this because if you understand these insights, these principles, you will become more successful in your business endeavors.
Thank you very much. You gave 3 introductions. Each was very different and good in different ways. Tell me what you thought about. I mean, I'm curious to know what your audience thinks about it. Maybe they could log in and write to you. But what did you notice about each one?
Well, obviously the first one this is my 506th episode. So, I mean, I've done that, that was easy. The other ones kind of took me a little, the scripting is there. The scripting's in my head. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people. The scripting's in their mind is, hey, this is how I'm going to talk about these numbers, right? This is how I explain the balance sheet to my wife or vice versa. And so the scripting was there, but I had to access it and piece it together. So it's hard on the fly. But like I said, the scripting is there.
Absolutely. It's hard on the fly. What's interesting to me as a listener was I've listened to your podcast. I've heard that introduction. Maybe not 500 times, but I've heard it enough. When I hear you say it, it sounds, yes, like you've said it many times before.
Yeah.
When you told me the story in the last version, it was interesting. You even had different slight cadence in your voice. You took a little bit of breath. You slowed down your speech. And then you told us why it was important. What if, Frank, you approached every podcast with a different twist on why we're here today? Why throw out the first 10 seconds of every or 2 minutes of every podcast if it's going to be the same loop?
You know what? This is one of these moments where you kind of look at yourself and say, God, how could I be so stupid? This makes so much sense. In fact, I just did an episode on that because earlier this year, I was talking to a friend who he told me, he said, I love listening to podcasts. I have your podcasts on my phone. I'm like, great. I never listened to it. Well, why not? And he went on to say, well, the titles aren't compelling. I don't know who Shelley Goldstein is. Why would I want to listen to her? So what he had me do is he had me change up what the title is to make it more compelling. I'm not exactly sure what I title this, but it's going to be something, the secret, the trick, or whatever to, connecting with any audience. Something like that, where somebody's going to be like, oh, and when he told me that, I was just like, oh my God, how could I be so stupid? I'm 400 episodes in and I've been doing this, taking the easy way, Matt Ward, Shelley Goldstein, Michelle Murder, and so I've systematically, the ones I'm releasing now, I've changed the titles, put a little effort into it. The ones I'm recycling, I'm changing the title, nothing else.
Cool.
And I'm going to start putting a little effort into changing how I introduce people, how I introduce them, how I introduce the podcast, why it matters, and making it more interesting. So
the truth is, you've been doing this a long time, as many of us have. We've been doing our jobs for a while. We know what we do. We know why we do it. And that's the interesting part. And you don't have to memorize it or script it because you know it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't script this interview. It just happened.
Yeah.
Because we let it flow. And it's not going to be perfect all the time. That's okay. That's part of being human. So I would love to invite you and to join Mark and I and do a full-on workshop, maybe even bring some of your listeners in or some of your networking group and see what it really what can transpire within 1 hour or even 90 minutes if we just did this in a few seconds. Can you imagine that?
It'd be very interesting. Yeah.